Welcome to this Purple Mash masterclass on using To-Email. In this session, we'll cover how to manage the settings of the To-Email tool, how to explore using To-Email and practice sending and receiving emails, and also considering how you might want to use To-Email in a cross-curricular approach with your class. It's worthwhile mentioning that it's important to have children accessing Purple Mash with individual logins in order for them to have their own To-Email account that they can send emails from. If you need people account setting up, please do contact support@tosimple.com, or you may wish to click on your name in the top right hand corner and access the live chat with support feature. To-Email is a tool that children will encounter if you're following the Purple Mash scheme of work and you're in Year 3. However, the To-Email resource will actually be utilised as part of online safety activities throughout the primary phase. It is also a great way of getting children to practice safe online communication and can be used in a variety of creative cross-curricular ways as well, which we'll explore today. So a good place to start is by accessing the To-Email tool. And we'll start by making sure that your settings are appropriate for the age of the children in your class. When logged in as a teacher, you'll be able to access the To-Email settings on the top row within To-Email. By clicking on this, it will come up with options to either change the settings per class by clicking on the class name, or if you expand the class, you can change individual pupil settings. Also, if you're an admin user for the school, you'll be able to change settings for the entire school in one go by clicking on the school name at the top. If I want to change the settings for an individual class, I need to ensure that the class name is highlighted, and on the right hand side I have a series of options to choose from. The top option allows me to choose whether the interface mode is designed for younger or older children. You'll find that by clicking on the little question mark, you'll receive a pop-up, and it'll obviously explain that in this instance, the younger interface is aimed at younger children with larger controls, more pictures and animations. The older interface is for older children and contains a fuller set of features. So my class are Year 1, so I'll leave that at the younger. You'll notice the second option, allow emailing to staff members. Quite self-explanatory. By default, it's no. So if you do want them to be able to email you, you can select yes and then save. You can revert to the pre-made settings at any point by just navigating back to the settings within To-Email. So if you just want to allow settings for one lesson at a time, then you have that power to do so. Now, if using To-Email for the first time, you'll find that this feature is automatically set to no. Children aren't allowed to email any other classmates without you first giving permission by coming to this option, selecting yes and pressing save. Again, you can obviously turn this on and off at the start and end of each lesson if you need to. By default as well, children-to-children emails do require approval. It's always our advice that if you do allow children to email each other, we recommend that you leave the child-to-child emails requires approval on. However, there might be some lessons that it would just be too much of a task for you to keep monitoring this because the entire lesson will focus on children sending and receiving emails, and they obviously won't be able to receive one until it's been approved by an adult. So again, you can change these settings as often as you like. The next option allows you to choose whether or not children have access to practice users. These are fictional characters within the address book, like the genie or Daddy Bear, and they can receive and send emails to these as a way of practicing. And it's, again, another way for children to use the email in a safe space. They're not actually real accounts. And the final option, enable pseudo emails, is an option that you may wish to enable for older children. It essentially allows an actual email handle to be assigned to each child. It's not a real email address. Anybody on any external emailing software will not be able to send emails to their pseudo email. It's just as a simulation to help it seem more realistic to children. So again, the settings are really important that you get them right for the level of ability of your children, but also as per your school's acceptable use policy. And you can always change these at any time. Once you have ensured that your settings are correct, it can then be a chance to look at your own To-Email inbox. So when you're logging on as yourself and accessing your 2Email inbox, you'll find that you see everything and you are automatically logged in as a teacher. It's quite useful to select the slider and see things from the pupil mode. Really useful if you're demonstrating 2Email features with your class. You can change the slider at any point and it will refresh the page showing them what's relevant to them. Quite useful as well to show them the different options that they will see on their screen. Reverting back to teacher mode, you'll notice that I have additional options here that I can see any emails that may have been flagged for my attention by a child by being reported, any emails that may have been rejected because they contain any maybe rude words or inappropriate content. And if I have left the child-to-child emails require approval setting switched on, then in this section here I will see any that require my approval. Then, as per other email accounts that you may be familiar with, you'll have access to your inbox, favourites, any draft emails that you want to save for later, your sent box and any deleted emails. So it's quite useful for you as a teacher to compose emails to your class, whether you want to use it as a correspondence tool or if you want to be able to send them some work. You can always attach files from either Purple Mash resources or documents and resources that you've got saved to your device. And you'll see here that when you send an email as a teacher, you can send it to multiple people at once. So by clicking on the contacts list here, it will come up with all the different children on the school that I have access to. But I can refine it by clicking on the all contacts option, and I can choose to send it just to one particular class. I might want to filter it out to just pupils or staff as well. And if you have created any groups, you will have access to groups within here. And previously mentioned the practice users, you'll see here you can use these whether you're a teacher or a child and choose which, if any, practice users you want to send emails to. In this instance, if I want to send it to class 1, here's all my children and staff who belong in staff 1, so I just want it to be my pupils. If I select all, I can add them to this email, or I can add them as CC, carbon copy. I can then further refine this if I want to by removing certain individuals by clicking on the cross icon, and then obviously I can then go back into the add option and add more children if needs be. Then when I press OK, they'll be added in the to section. You'll notice that I can additionally add CC contacts as well by doing the same method. Just like all other email software, you'll have a subject line, so I'll just call this one demo, and within the main body of the email you'll be able to choose different font types, alignment, bullet points, numbered lists and different font sizes and font families. So I'm just going to call this is a demo. And here I can just save this to my drafts. I can attach a file just like the main format within Purple Mash. I can either do it from my device or from elsewhere where I have access to in Purple Mash. And then it will show me and give me a preview of my attachments. I can add further attachments or I can paint a picture as well. And I can also incorporate some clip art images or upload any files that I might have saved to my device as well. If I'm happy to send that, I can click send and that gets sent off to those children, and I'll be able to find that now in my sent section as well. So it gives me the time and date, shows me any attachments if I want to have a look at it, and I can review what the contents were. Also, a really useful feature here, you'll notice the red dots next to each child's name will indicate whether or not they have read the email. It will change to green if the email has been read. It's also important to note that when children are accessing via the younger interface, when they go to compose a message using the write email option, they have a slightly different access right to who they can send the email to by clicking on contacts. They can filter the different classes and they can then send them to multiple children individually by clicking on the list here. You'll notice as well there isn't the editing text options such as bold, italic and alignment options as there are in the older interface mode. So it's basically it reduces the amount of options for them to select from, and they can just write the message. They can still attach files, paint pictures, and if I click send now, that email will be sent to their classmates. If I now access the recipient's inbox, you'll notice the email's gone straight to Blake. That's because child-to-child emails have not required approval. It's really key to note, though, that if Blake opens up the email from Amy, he can see all the contents, but he does have this option to report to teacher. If Blake chose to report this to teacher, it'll come up with a pop-up just asking him if he's sure, and it will remove the email after it's been reported. If he clicks yes, it will now be flagged up to the teacher linked to that class, informing them that an email has been reported, and it will file this email in the reported email section. Returning to my own account now, you'll notice I've received a notification. I can click from here and I can see a pupil has reported an email as being inappropriate. I can see the email was from this particular child, and if I go to this alert, it will open up my to email inbox, and then I'll be able to see the reported email in this bottom section here. So this is the one received today. I can open it up and see the conversation that's taken place digitally. I can print out a copy if I need to be able to share this with other teachers or parents and carers, and I have an option here to use this as a chance to discuss why the contents were inappropriate. If settings for a class have child-to-child emails do require approval, you'll find that all emails a child sends to each other will sit in your awaiting approval inbox. So I'll show you how that appears to a child and you now. Right, Beatrice is in class 2, and class 2 children require approval in order to send each other emails. So if Beatrice wants to write an email to somebody else in her class, let's say she'll send this to Chris. I'm just going to quickly write the word demo, and does this email require approval? So again, whatever it is the child wants to type or write or attach, they can send as normal. However, this time, when we go and look at Chris's account, you'll find that there aren't any emails received. Now, on Chris's emails, you can see that he hasn't received any emails in his inbox. However, what's happened to me is I have received an alert telling me I have emails waiting to be approved. So if I go to the email approval section, where it says awaiting approval, you'll find that I have the one just now, the demo to Chris. Does this email require approval? And this is where I have the option to allow Chris to receive the email or to reject it. So I will approve this email, and then it will appear in his inbox. So now this email has been received by Chris. He can open it and respond to it if he needs to. You'll notice he does also have the option to report to teacher as well, just in case there's anything that you might have missed whilst you went through the approval process. So as you can see, from your teacher perspective, you do have a lot of tools at your disposal to ensure that children are using the to-email tool in a safe and appropriate manner. You can always find additional guidance as to how to use the software by clicking on the question mark icon at the top of the screen, and this will cover the to-email user guide and FAQs. Now we'll have a look at how we can use to-email across the curriculum in a creative way. As you can see from within the to-email resource area, there are pre-made scenario email conversations for online safety that are delivered as part of the online safety units for the computing scheme of work. And it's important to note these can't be accessed unless a teacher sets them for children as a to-do. And then further down, you'll notice there are some pre-made generic to respond activities that you can use in a creative way, and also some topic-based historical figures who will help bring your curriculum to life where children can receive a set of emails from a particular historical figure that you might be studying as part of any topics or themes within your class. So we'll show how you can use some of the pre-made online Safety to Responds and the generic ones, and also how you can create your own and maybe incorporate it into other subjects in the curriculum like science or English. So firstly, let me just go down to one of the famous people one. I'll go to King Alfred. So all these to responds that have been automatically created have a preset list, a preset conversation of emails that have been created that the children will reply to and then receive another email in turn until the end of that series of communications. You can set them as a to-do so the children can receive them straight away, but if you're keen to understand how they work, a good way of doing it is to have a play by clicking Launch. So the to respond activities, the children will receive an email from the particular person that you have chosen. If it's a historical figure or if it's one of the online safety activities, it might be from a particular character within a scenario the children have been looking at. After a short while, they'll see in their inbox they've received an email. So in this case, I've received one from King Alfred. Now we've got a message from King Alfred as saying, "Hello, dear class, my name is King Alfred. I was born of Wessex. Many people thought I would never be king. Why did people think this?" So it gives children the opportunity to reply. I'm just going to put, this is a demo, and I'm going to click send. Obviously children can also save this to draft and return back to it at a later date. They can attach files and they can also add images and paint pictures if they wish. If I send this email, after a short moment, you'll find that I will receive another email from the same character, following on from my response and giving me or posing me another question. Sometimes the delay can be slightly longer than the previous one. They try and do this to make it look a little bit more realistic, as though King Alfred is actually typing it. But as you can see here, just popping up, King Alfred has sent an email called Making Peace. And again, I've got a new email and I've got a new question to answer. So I can reply, and I'll call this one testing as well. So essentially we have a nice conversation, a two-way conversation that we can then at the end have a nice print conversation option, and I can see from both sides how children have been able to respond to the questions that have been posed by that particular character. So now if I was to open this up, if I was to print out the full conversation, then I've got time and date stamps and the content of what has taken place in the conversations between everybody. So as I'm sure you can appreciate, it puts a new angle on ways of immersing children in a particular topic or looking at a particular figure that you might be studying. Obviously, some of the to responds are longer, some are shorter, and to give you the scripts of the to respond emails, if you click on the question mark at the top of your inbox and select to respond email simulations, you will have access to see what all of the scripts are for the different types of to responds. So the general one, like Barnaby Bear, the online safety simulations, and in the case of King Alfred, if I wanted to be able to just read the script and see what was going to be in each email without actually having to play the activity myself, then I can open up this and it just shows me the contents of each of the emails and how many to expect. So you'll see for each of the different historical figures or characters, you will have access to the scripts. Now we'll have a look at how you might want to make your own, because quite often when children have had one to respond experience, they are quite keen to use it in other ways because they get quite excited that they've received an email from either a fictional character or a historical or famous person that you might be studying. So the tool to respond creator allows you to create your own. It's a really nice way of incorporating cross-curricular links. Any that you've previously created yourself, any previous characters, you can open up. So for example here, I've pretended to be Professor Snape from Harry Potter, and I've also pretended to be Emmett from the Lego movie. So I can open up previous ones, but I'm going to show you how you can create your own. Right, so I'm going to create a to respond based on science, and I want my children to think about how they can formulate an investigation broken down into smaller sections via the to email process. So I'm going to create a blank one, and I'm going to create a sender. So at the moment we've got a mystery sender, so I'm going to choose one either from the bank that have already been created. So for example, I've done it previously with Albert Einstein, that's why his name appears here. We do have the stock characters as well, like dragon and genie, and you can have the children receive an email from head teacher or Miss O Safety if you're doing about online safety. But I'm going to create my own. So I'm going to select create character, and I'm going to give this character a name. He's going to be a famous scientist that we've been looking at in class. And I'm going to choose which classes will be able to receive emails from this character. So I can choose multiple classes, or it might just be one class that I'm setting the email for. I'm going to select all, and again you might have seen the option, if you do have any groups as well, you can allow certain groups to receive emails from to respond characters as well. I'm now going to upload a picture that I found and I've saved to my device. So I'm going to select from my PC and then find the image I've saved, and that's added here. So I'm going to create and use this character, and I'm going to press OK. I'm going to click plus first. I'm going to add the same image here as well, just so we've got the same thing. It could be, for example, if you did want, you could have, if I type in science here, for example, I could add some science images as well. Now that I've selected OK, this takes me to my blank email thread. So this is where I can build as many to responds as I want for this particular activity. So as I mentioned, I'm going to do this for a science theme, and I want my children in my class to think about how they can structure their science investigation in small sections to get them thinking really in detail, rather than just being overwhelmed with an entire blank sheet that they have to then formulate or write up their science investigation on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type a simple email subject for the first email. What are you investigating? So in the actual main body, I might say, please explain what it is that you will investigate. Be as descriptive as possible. Again, if you want to, you can change the font size and so on. This section here is quite useful because if you wanted to be a little bit more realistic for children, you can choose as to how long the delay is before they receive the next email. So for example, if I wanted them to wait 2 minutes, I could type in 120 seconds. What's quite nice as well, if you're doing this to help draw out some skills in other areas of the curriculum, you might want to attach like a steps to success or a waggle document just to give them ideas and to encourage them to give as much information or explanation in the email response. Then I can add my next one. So the subject this time will be what equipment will you need? So I might ask them to create a list. So create a bullet point list of what you will need. Don't forget quantities. So again, I'm now adding them the extra email in this communication thread. I might just get them to wait for 1 minute of this reply, and then my next email will be how will you make it a fair test? I might get them to think about your variables. Excuse my typing. What will you change and what will you keep the same? I might alter it so it's 1.5 minutes this time, just to keep them on their toes. The next one, I might say, what is your prediction? Try and explain your prediction. It in as and so on. So as you can see, we can start to add as many as we want. If there's one that actually you need to get rid of, click on it and you can remove it from the thread, and then you can add another one. So in this case, what are your results? And I might ask them to attach, if I can spell it properly, attach a file with your chart graph. And the final one, what is your conclusion? Apologies, I clearly can't use the question mark toolbar. If I now just say, was your prediction correct? Again, it's just my typing skills I need to improve, and my question mark using skills. So when I'm happy with that and I've checked, obviously this is what I am asking them, and then they will then reply. So if I wanted to be able to share this with my class, set it as a to-do, then if I click share, it will prompt me to save this to respond thread. So if I click save, I'm going to call this science investigation to respond. And once I click save, these are the ways in which I can now share it with my children. I can set it as a to-do, and then they can then receive the emails and they can respond, and then I can print out that full conversation at the end, just like I showed you when we were looking at the King Alfred option. And then essentially you have, in small bite-sized chunks, you have the children's science investigation quite clearly written and thought about, with evidence attached as and when is appropriate. So obviously this is just an example of how to use it for one thing, like for a science investigation. You might want to use it for creative writing, like send them an image and see if they could give you some good adverbial phrases or adjectives that help to describe the phrases. It could really be used in pretty much all areas of the curriculum, and it's a great way to get children thinking in small bursts. So hopefully that's given you an idea as to how you may wish to use it. And as with all things, if you have saved it in your work folder, then save you having to reinvent the wheel every year, you can just click on the resource next year and set it as a to-do for your new cohort. I hope this masterclass has been useful as a way to get your head around how to set up 2 email settings properly for the age and stages of your children, how to use it, and also ideas as to how you may wish to use this tool creatively across the curriculum. Thank you very much for your time.